It's a truly sustainable product for performance using natural materials. I started going down the environmental route, the discharging of fabrics and waste and textiles and polyesters, what we're doing to our planet, all made from plastic and oils. And that's when Zenkai and the whole kind of thing started coming together.
You played professional hockey, you had a career post-hockey, and then you kind of landed in the apparel industry.
Life of an athlete, it's not your own. I made the decision to walk away and I didn't know what it was going to be. I was nervous, I was scared. I went and started coaching after that, and that's kind of what got me on my next path.
And so how does Zenkai come into the picture?
In the state of Oregon, the largest employers are Nike and Intel. So I got to know a lot of these high-end people at both companies if their kids played ice hockey. Met this gentleman that used to work for the Jordan brand at Nike, and he had this new technology that Nike wanted to incorporate. The deal didn't happen. He's like, Doug, you should go meet this guy that built this technology. And we went into business together. Don't have a background in apparel, but he really wanted to take this tech into the sports world, and I had relationships in sports. That's how it started.
Give me some of these results from the testing.
14 tests, no microbes detected, no odor detected. We did something called vapor transmission test. So like a polyester shirt might be 300, not breathable at all. Not only are you wearing material that's not good for the planet, derived from oil and plastic, you're overheating your body as you're wearing it. The Zenkai material activated by Filium, 2.5 times more breathable. Some of the most well-known athletes on the planet are saying, Doug, this is incredible. And we haven't brought it to the masses yet.
Shit, welcome to Austin, Doug Lynch.
Cal, love coming here.
Yeah.
Love coming here. But mostly because you're here, but we all seem to have some fun outside of that as well.
Yeah, well, the only other time you were here is when we met.
Yep.
And we got connected through a mutual friend, McCod Brooks. Yep. And he had shared with me, you got to meet Doug. He's doing some really cool stuff in the apparel industry. If nothing else, you guys will have a great time. So we went and had dinner, and then you started sharing. And to full disclosure, I was not in investing mode at that point. I had shut things down. I'm like, I need a bit of a break for this season. And then like halfway through dinner, I'm like, okay, like I need to be a part of this. Like, and because the Zenkai product and the Filium technology was super compelling, but I just had this sense from you learning about your history, through our dinner, and just a sense, an intuitive sense of this is someone that I want to be partnered up with. And so here we are, almost a year later, and things have moved quite, significantly since then.
Yes. Well, I remember that dinner. I remember coming to Austin, and we had a mutual friend, Bill Stapleton, and like, you gotta go see Cal. And I texted you and met for dinner, and it's like you meet people, and there's an energetic connection or spiritual connection, whatever you kind of call it, and there's a reason people become friends, and there's a reason you meet people sometimes like, hey, that's not my cup of tea. Didn't do anything wrong. How many times you meet someone like they never did anything wrong to you, never said anything, but you just like,
he's okay, but not searching him out next time.
Yeah. But then some people you meet right away, like, man, I'd love to spend more time with this person. Like an hour goes by, it's like, felt like 10 minutes, and I can't wait to the next time. And you're one of the guys blowing smoke here that like I got off the phone with, and I always felt better. Like, I always felt more energized, even if I was having a long day, or it's, you're mentally or physically exhausted from a business transaction or whatever else is going on in your life. But every time you and I would talk on the phone, I'm like, man, I feel better. And it's like, that's the type of person that I want to surround myself with. And I think if in this life, if you can surround yourself with people like that, you're going to be in good shape.
Yeah, I agree. That's well said. And I definitely, we're gonna cover Zenkai and Filium, certainly throughout this podcast, but I want to dial it back a little bit and really get into kind of your origin story and really kind of suss out the things that I saw, in that first dinner meeting that we had. You grew up playing hockey, you played professional hockey. You had a career post hockey, and then you kind of landed in the apparel industry. But, one of the things you said last night that I hadn't realized was you had a 15-year career and you had 11 one-year contracts. And I just think that's fascinating to live, especially in the professional sports world, of what that does to you and what kind of resilience that creates. And so just like share, I don't know, whatever you feel like sharing about that journey for you that, is kind of most important.
Yeah. Sports are one of those kind of great equalizers where you can come from a very well-off situation. You can come from maybe not so fortunate situation. And did you put the work in? Like, did you work out, think about back in those old 80s Rockies movies. Are you out in the barn doing pull-ups with a branch? Or are you in some high-tech facility? At the end of the day, did you put the work in? And I think that's what I love so much about sports is it doesn't matter where you come from, the language you speak, your demographic, your background is, did you put the work in? And it's kind of been instilled with me probably, obviously from my parents first and having 3 younger brothers and the 4 of us being uber competitive. And you get into this mindset of like, you show up every day. Nobody feels good every day. But you know what? Some people show up every day. And that's the person that I wanted to become for my family, for my teammates, now for my wife. It's like, I like being accountable is something that's very important to me. And one of my earlier kind of advisors said to me, like, you want to be with people that take your call. And like, I want to be surrounded by people that take my call and I take their call. Yeah, you might be busy. I'll call you back in 10 minutes or text me, hey man, I'm on a trip. I'll call you back next week. But like surrounding yourself with people and being accountable. And for me, I learned that through sports because I'm sure a lot of people out there, if they didn't play sports, you wake up, I feel like shit today. I didn't sleep good or whatever. You got to bring it. You still got to bring it. And for me, that's without understanding, like I have a high school education, but at the same time, I have this background in sports that have just taught me, and Jack Ma calls it the soft skills, but you have this ability, people call it grit, determination, accountability, but you got to show up every day. And I think no matter what line of work you're in as a human, I kind of want to be remembered as someone that shows up every day.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I'm curious, like what was the most challenging part of that 15-year run where, again, you didn't sign long-term deals and you were in different cities, in different countries?
I think it was honestly believing in myself and then recognizing that it's up to me to get my body and my mind in a place that can, whether it's the rigors of a professional hockey league season, whether it's moving, and the old adage is you can only control what you can control. And during my career, I knew that if I didn't play well this year, I won't be signed for next year. So then you got to break that down. Like I got to play well this month. I got to play well this week. I got to play well this day. And you basically build up this kind of resilience of every day you're just showing up and doing the best you can do even when you don't feel good. And you get a lot of respect for, I think, from my situation, your teammates, and now maybe my colleagues in business, where being known as a person that's showing up. And I don't really know if I did it consciously, but then you look back and you're like, oh man, like I played 14, 15 years. I had 11 one-year contracts. Like I never thought of it while I was going through it, but it was just like, that was what ended up happening. And that means you're playing through injury. You're playing all the time and you're internalizing some things, and you're maybe being a little stupid sometimes, and looking back, probably shouldn't have played some of the nights I did, but at the end of the day, that's all I kind of knew.
Yeah. Damn. What was your favorite city to play in?
I would probably say Salzburg, Austria. Mostly I was there for 7 years. We ended up winning 3 championships in the regular season, plus another 3 international tournaments. So like kind of like a Champions League in soccer. It was called the European Trophy back when I played. But you're playing against the best countries in Russia, the teams in Russia, the SCL, the Swedish Elite League, Finnish League, the Swiss League. And whereas Austria, we're not considered a hockey powerhouse as far as the country, but we had amazing teams, and our ownership put together an amazing group of players. So probably Salzburg was the time. And then you get to see Europe and travel around, and, getting off topic from hockey, I think travel is one of the most important educational components of anybody in the world. I think if you can travel and live and experience other cultures, what that does for you as a growth of the human being when you come back to wherever your neck of the woods is, I think it's invaluable. And I was so fortunate to have a job where I got to travel, and I lived in Europe for almost 8 years. And for me, that was I think that's been a huge part of my character building as well. I remember I flew from Vancouver to Salzburg through Munich. So flight into Munich. Had never been to Europe before. Sorry, been to Europe one time before. Dropped off. The radio guy picked me up, spoke very, very little English, handed the car keys and showed me my Skoda car for the year. It was pouring rain, Cal, like rain, like you can't, like the windshield wipers were going as fast as possible, but you can't even like still see. Yeah. And he says, okay, I'll base in broken English. I'll see you tomorrow at 8 a.m. at the rink to sign documents and whatever. And he handed me a piece of paper. And this is like 2000. Oh God, dating myself, like 9 or 10, like the iPhone had just come out, like that. Like you remember like MapQuest and all that stuff. And I remember he handed me a piece of paper with the Alpenstrasse address written down. He said, go find your apartment. And like it's like 9 o'clock on a Sunday night. He wants to go home to his family. He drew the short end of the stick out of him to come pick me up. Yeah. And you're like, just figure it out. Like no one's holding your hand. Like, and I remember driving around. I got lost 30 times, and Salisbury's not a big place, and found a gas station, and found someone to help me with directions to get home. And it's like that simple act, right? Of just like figuring it out. It's like you only get those experiences when you get outside of this little bubble that we all live in, because that's the bubble's safe. Bubble's easy.
Yeah, it's comfortable.
But there's no growth in the bubble. It's awesome to stay and relax and unwind and meditate, whatever it is, but there's no growth.
No, I think that's one of the big challenges that I think the younger generations are having, is that they don't have a lot of opportunities in some cases for that. Like, you just got to figure this shit out. A lot of it is at their fingertips, or, there are a lot of, I guess, parents out there that are trying to do the right thing, but are stunting that ability for growth in just figuring it out.
And getting back to the sports aspect, again, I'm not a father yet. And obviously my wife and I like to have a family. We'll be trying this year. And I get it. You want to give your kids experience. You don't want them to suffer. Like, why would you want the most important people on the planet to suffer? Like, I get it. It must be incredibly difficult. But again, there's no growth if you don't suffer. And sports, again, is one of those things where you can suffer. And it's a little bit of like a controlled environment, if that makes sense. Like, you can get knocked on your ass. You can lose 15-0. You can be booed and feel disappointed or letting your teammates down. But it's like this controlled environment that you can suffer in. It's like, it's not like you're suffering just to meet your basic needs. So I think that's the kind of the suffering, is like the sports from me, and then traveling and having to live in these countries and get by and figure it out. And I wouldn't be the person I was if I didn't go through all that. And looking back now, the suffering is what is allowing me to have the opportunities I have now.
Yeah. When did you know it was time to move on?
It's 32-ish. Played my last year in Salzburg. Came back, and you're just trying to get your mindset ready for the next season. And you're going, contract's a little bit shittier. Not going to go back to Salzburg, and another team's going to be a little bit less professional, possibly. Money's less. And you're like, remember my dad, I sat down with my dad one night and we had some beers, and he said, Doug, it doesn't matter what your education background is. It'll probably take you 5 years to build up some resistance, or not resistance, and build up some credibility in whatever your next profession's going to be. It's accounting, it's whatever it's going to be. And so he's like, whenever you retire, just kind of have that in the back of your mind. So if you can grind out for another 2 or 3 years and retire at 36, 37, like by the time you're 42, maybe you're established in your next career after hockey. Because someone like me, there's always going to be a next career. I didn't make the kind of money where I knew I could just retire and then have fun or do investments or whatever. I knew I'd be working at something for another 50 years. So I remember I really took it to heart, and I sat there and decided, like, you know what? by 37, 38 and closer to 40, I think I'd like to be established in my next life. And so I made the decision to walk away. Yeah, my body's banged up and teeth are all broken and concussions and things like that, but it wasn't nothing catastrophic. I could have kept going back and playing, but I just made the choice that I kind of want to take the power back a little bit. 11 cities in 14 years, 4 countries, the contracts, like we mentioned. Life of an athlete, it's not your own. You're told when to show up, what to wear, what your body fat needs to be, what your VO2 max needs to be. You can be traded, released, cut at any time. So you're constantly living in this life where the phone rings and you're like, you could be traded to some city and in a bus the next day, which happened to me a couple of times. And I remember, I'm like, you know what? I think I want to take the power back for this next chapter of my life. And I didn't know what it was going to be. I was nervous. I was scared. I don't like using the word depressed because it's really, really real and dark. And I don't know if I got as far as being really depressed, but I was scared. I was nervous. I was anxious. You also come a little bit, I'm sure people like in the military can relate from this very structured life. Well, then you just wake up and you're like, no one's telling me to do anything. And even though, Cal, it's what I wanted, it was scary because I don't have to work out. I don't have to go to the gym. I could sleep until noon if I want. And so that was a real struggle for me too, is finding the structure. Cause I think human beings naturally do a little bit better when there's structure around their life. And I know for someone like me, I love structure and I love routine. So that was really hard when I first retired, but I got through it. Took me 4 or 5 months. I couldn't watch hockey, didn't really want to talk about hockey, want to do anything but. And I went and started coaching after that. And that's what kind of made me fall in love with the game from a different perspective from the coaching side. And that's kind of what got me on my next path.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's an important part to highlight what it feels like when you've lived this life. I mean, you played professional hockey for 14, 15 years, but you had played hockey up through then. So you were used to regimen and structure. And, I think to shine the light on that for people who just maybe can't understand how someone has had this incredibly successful career in the NFL or NHL or, pick your sport. And then their life kind of goes to shit afterwards. And it's it's the guy who gets released from jail and he actually wants to go back in because there's a comfort there.
For sure.
And, there's this identity of, I know where I'm supposed to be, when I'm supposed to be, just being coached in some ways.
Cal, you said it right there. I remember every barbecue I'd go to, every family event, family reunion, I was like, oh, you're the hockey player. And what happened to me mentally was that's all I thought I was. And I go to every engagement, every party, every Christmas event, and only people talk to me about hockey. Like I wasn't capable of giving an opinion on anything else. And it messed with me for a lot of years because I'm like, maybe that's all I do. Maybe I'm just do hockey. And I played and now I coach and that's my life. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but for me, I just felt like I wanted to disassociate that a little bit. And now what I realized now was hockey was my profession. It was what I did. It's what I loved, but it's not who I am. And that was a change too, more of just an internal emotional change. Was not being identified as a hockey player. I'm a person. That was my profession. And that took me probably about a year to work through as well. Like a funny story about the routine. I remember even 2 years after retiring, right around 12 or 12:30, I'd be starving because that's when we had pregame meal. And then by 1 o'clock, all I wanted to do is sleep.
No shit.
Because in our routine and the way when we played with 12:30, nice big meal, get back to your hotel room, 1:15, you sleep from like 1 to 3. And I remember the middle of the day, there'd be no reason. I'd like wake up, I'd like have a smoothie and like sit around, read the paper. And by 12, I'm like, I'm tired and I need to eat. It took us like a year before like, I didn't even do anything today. Why am I so tired? Big 2-hour nap in the middle of the afternoon. But it's just, God, for even before I played pro, it's like, that was like your routine. And my body just got accustomed to that routine. And it was so bizarre.
Yeah. Well, tell me about the coaching career. Who were you coaching? Where were you coaching?
Yeah, I was in Portland, Oregon, where I retired and went down the local rink. And a friend of mine was running the rink, and I started working with 5-year-old kids, and it was incredible. It was like furthest away from being a professional ice hockey player. And I used to work with the kids and have fun every single day, and built up a nice little program in Portland, Oregon. And I had a great experience there. And then the Portland Winterhawks are there, which is our WHL team. Mike Johnson, Travis Green were running the team back then. And they brought me in to do some stuff in the playoffs for them and be kind of like the eye in the sky. And it got me an experience at coaching a very, very high level of hockey. They had great teams back then. I think they won the championship the year before and closely the year after, right in that kind of span. But I realized I didn't have the passion to coach. I had to be a player. And it's totally different. Same world, just a completely different lens and mindset. And I'm back on the bus, I'm traveling 13, 14 hours. You're doing the analytics, and the whole game was changing too, to way more scientific. And I woke up again, getting back to what I alluded to earlier about kind of taking the power back. It's like you're back into the same life again, where to be a coach at the highest levels of the world, you got to move where the opportunities are. So I would have been at, again, 10, 12 cities in the next 15 years to try to grow my career to possibly coach in the NHL. And I didn't have the passion for it. And I think Steve Jobs had a saying, I always butcher it. I wish I could find it where I read it. But basically, like, if you don't love what you do, you just look like you're crazy. Like, he was so fanatical at building Apple and whatever. Like, if you didn't love it, like, that's a crazy person. And that's the kind of fanaticism, like you have to be a little crazy to be super successful, because that's the focus you need to have. And I had that as a player. Yeah. Like beer in the summer, like I didn't drink beer in the summer. I was very focused on my diet. Like, like you go to bar, but like people are still drinking beer in the summer, like, but you're not.
Yeah.
You have to have this fanatical kind of mindset. But when you switch that, then, whatever career you're going to do. So for me, it was like, I didn't have that as a coach. I knew that right away. And if you're going to be wrong quick. And that was kind of what I had really good advice early on. So I jumped into it, realized it wasn't for me. And for then it was, from now I know I didn't want to coach, and I could move on to my next chapter for whatever that was going to be.
And so how does Zenkai come into the picture?
So because I was in Portland, in the state of Oregon, the largest employers are Nike and Intel. So I got to know a lot of these high-end people at both companies if their kids played ice hockey. So I ended up meeting a friend who's working for the Jordan brand and was working on this technology behind the scenes. So we may become friends at the ice hockey rink. From there, remember when the NHL was doing exhibition games in China leading to the 2022 Beijing Olympics? So a friend of mine had a rink in China. So I ended up going to China. I'd never been to Asia before. And I actually ran the NHL's grassroots program in Asia for 2 years. So Shanghai, Beijing, and I was based in Shenzhen. So we did coaching symposiums and skill clinics for kids and adults in China as the NHL was coming over there. So I was back and forth for China for a couple of years, and then back to Portland and met this gentleman that used to work for the Jordan brand at Nike. And he had this new technology that Nike wanted to incorporate, and deal didn't happen. And he's like, Doug, you should go meet this guy that built this technology. And so I drove up from Portland to Seattle and met my partner, Raj, and we went into business together. So it was never thought I'd ever be in apparel, don't have a background in apparel, but he really wanted to take this tech into the sports world, and I had relationships in sports, and that's how it started.
What year is this?
So, it's funny. Today, I didn't even tell you this, today is our 6-year anniversary for Zenkai.
No shit.
I can't even make this up.
Of course it is.
Yeah, today.
Damn, it's been that
6 years. So 6 years today, I was in the law office in Portland, Oregon with our trademark lawyer. And I'd heard the name from someone of Kaizen. Bobby's part of our company, Filium. And I wrote it down, Kaizen. I like that word. Did a bunch of research on it. And Kaizen's the Japanese philosophy of continuous improvement. So like Toyota, Lexus, all use that as kind of their company motto. And I'm like, oh man, I love that. And we got back, you talked about earlier, Cal, about showing up, being accountable, well, getting better every day. Like that's all stuff I try to live by through my career. And I'm like, I love this idea of Kaizen. It's like one word. So I'm like, I want to call a clothing brand Kaizen. I love it. There's 300 companies use that word in the world. I'm not creative. Like no chance I'm going to trademark this. And so I was sitting there in the law office in Portland, Oregon, downtown, and we just started playing around with the word. And I cut the word in half and flipped it, and it came up with Zenkai. And so for me, it just like immediately hit home of, well, if Kaizen's continuous improvement, then the flip Zenkai's improve continuously. And that was like, done. We're done. That's it. And so for me, it really meant something, not just for the performance side, but getting into the planet. And I, ate meat my whole life and kind of normal, typical diet. And I remember retiring and I'm like, I want to reset my system. So I went vegan for a year, which was very difficult. And the cold turkey, I went from eating like fillets to like Monday morning, like nothing.
Dude,
it was the wrong way to do it. I don't
know if right or wrong, but I get it. Cause when I want to stop stuff, I fucking cold turkey it, and it is hard. So I wanted to reset my system. So I did that, eventually kind of settled on being a pescatarian and introducing fish and eggs back into my diet. But the point was I started going down the environmental route through food. Started educating myself, books and some great Netflix documentaries. And the apparel industry started kind of coming into that, and the discharging of fabrics and waste and textiles and polyesters and what we're doing to our planet and how you source these fabrics, and they're all made from plastic and oil. So I kind of fell into that part. Like it was kind of through the back door. I got into kind of sustainability angle, but it started from food for me. And that's when Zenkai and the whole kind of thing started coming together with a truly sustainable product for performance that was using natural materials. And that was 6 years ago today. I popped up on my phone this morning. No shit.
Yeah. And then we incorporated the next February. So like 2 or 3 months, like I sat with it for 2 or 3 months and started like, okay, is this going to happen? I was still running my coaching consulting business. So I was still working like full time on that. And there's like my side hustle for fun. And then February came around and we raised some money with my parents were our first 2 investors. We had some friends and family from Portland. Some friends come in and raised some money, and we started an apparel company.
Yeah, I'm just trying to work this out, because that's a major leap to start an apparel company. So what, like, how do you do? You have this technology. So you want to obviously incorporate that into but how do you decide on what direction you're going? Like just in the very rudimentary steps of, I don't even like starting a podcast. You get some equipment, you kind of watch some people do it. You ask some people who've done it, and then you bring on a guest and you have a conversation. It's pretty simple to do that. Starting a clothing brand, sourcing shit and getting the right fits and men's, women's, athletic, walk me through that a little bit.
Yeah. So full disclosure, nobody should start an apparel brand. It is so hard.
Which is what your dad told you.
Yeah, that's what
he's been in the business.
Sandy, I brought this to Sandy. Sandy's like, Doug, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard you say. I'm like, Sandy, I got to do it. I got this new tech. He's like, okay, fine. I'm going to join you and I'll hold your hand through most of this. But it's extremely difficult, extremely hard, especially when a lot of it's done overseas, like not in a place where you can go visit very easily. It comes down to people. And I'm smart enough to know how dumb I am. I'm very good at staying in my lane, and I'm really good at working with people in a group. Again, coming just back from sports, nothing I've done. It's just being a teammate over years.
One of the things that I think has impressed me the most, in our relationship and watching you grow this company in pivots here and there, they're minor pivots. And it's like you keep the ethos front and center, and there's so much incoming that could distract you. And it seems like you give it an appropriate amount of time and attention and decide whether or not it fits. And that, I feel like that's got to be one of the most challenging things as an entrepreneur, is to not get distracted by the shiny toys.
Yes. It's one of the hardest things is to recognize that money and success, I firmly believe, are a byproduct of doing something you love. And I'm so fortunate, lucky that I played pro ice hockey for a lot of years, and a lot of kids that play sports dream of playing their sport at the highest level. And I don't take it for granted. Obviously, I worked extremely hard, but I don't take that for granted. So I had a life where I did what I loved. And then someone woke up and paid me one day for it. You're like, what is going on? I would pay to do this every day. And now you're going to pay me to show up and do this? Like, this is the coolest thing ever. Yeah. Cal, I feel the same way now. And money, like, of course I want to be successful, and I want to support my family, and I want to take care of the people around me that have supported me along the way. My parents, my brothers, everybody. But I'm not worried about money. It's going to come.
And you know, that was probably one of the things that it's rare to see, as well as a guy who's done a lot of investing, is you wanted what was best for everybody. And I always felt like you had the group's interests front and center, and it was never about you getting what you deserved. And I've just never sensed that. And I've told people that about, you know, our relationship, and what's been so special about it is, you know, in people that I've brought in and who have invested, I said, that's the number one thing. I said, it's going to be a more than fair deal. And I think it just goes to show that you're not about, trying to make as much money as I can. Now, you're trying to make a lot of money for a lot of people. And it's back to that team aspect, and, you know, we all win together. And so it's been so cool.
Well, thanks, Cal. It's super sweet saying that. And thank you, because it's honestly what I believe. And I'm glad it comes out as being authentic, because it truly is. And I learned that when I was 17 years old and I was playing major junior hockey in Red Deer, Alberta. And we won the Memorial Cup that year. And Memorial Cup's the hardest trophy to win in hockey. If to win your league, plus single, play the best teams in all the other leagues in major junior. And we won the Memorial Cup. And after that year, we had 13 players drafted into the NHL, and 3 or 4 players signed professional tryouts. So of 2022 players, I think 17, 18, someone can find out, I'm sure, went on to play pro hockey at some level. And it was just taught me of like, man, like, we win as a collective. All of us are going to win as individuals. And I remember I brought that later on, and I was in Salzburg and as part of the leadership team over there. And I remember going to the playoffs of one year, and we're kind of struggling going into playoffs, and everyone's got bonuses, Cal, in pro hockey for games played, or bonuses, or this or that, or goals or assists. And I sat the team down. I'm like, hey boys, I don't care why any of you want to win this year. I don't care. It's because you want to buy a new hot tub, or you want to send your kids to private school, or this guy wants to buy a new boat. This guy wants to go to Vegas and just throw it on black and red. Like, it doesn't matter what your reason for winning is, but let's just make sure that we're doing it together. Like, we're all in this together. Your reasons for why you want to win can be completely individual. But if we don't win as a group, if we don't come together as a group, then none of that, the boat, the kids to private school, like, that doesn't happen. And I think that's what's always been in my head is some people want to win because their ego wants to be on the front cover of a magazine. That's no problem. Other guy wants to buy a boat. Great. Other guy wants to put in a 401k. Great. Like, there's no issue with any of that. But at the end of the day, if we don't succeed, no one gets that. Yeah. And I think that's what I brought the mentality into, you know, my company and our company, and what we're doing together is that, like, it doesn't matter what individually is. Like, can we bring this group together? And some people fit, sometimes they don't. And you got to, in hockey or pro sports, cut people, fire people, trade people. Businesses, you got to fire people, release people. And it's uncomfortable and not easy. But at the end of the day, when you're coming from the mindset of like, the money will come if we're successful. So for me, every day as, you know, a leader, if you want to say that for our company, is like, how do I bring more successful, smarter people that have made more mistakes, people that know how to avoid the potholes? I want all day long, just come, give me a call, come join the company, come be an advisor, come be on the board with us. Like, how do we find those people? And I think when you come through that lens, I attract people like you into my life that like feel the same way as I do, and just want to be part of a collective, because that's the energy that we want to put out back there. So
love it. Yeah. just like stuck on this idea of you like starting this apparel company. And so how does, like, what were your first things that you produced?
So we did a black t-shirt, and then we did base layer for athletes. We started in hockey because do what you know, and which is a very technical piece, base layer. It's if you're off on your seam allowances or seam tolerances, it doesn't fit properly. And I remember my parents, they allow us to use their basement as our office. And it was a nice setup. It wasn't like in dingy, like water was dripping off the ceiling. Like it was a nice little desk and whatever. And I remember we set it up, and a couple months, built the website, got some black t-shirts, and I'm just handing them all to all my buddies. And then one day the phone rang, and we're online D2C. It was Zenkai Sports, and the phone rang, and somebody placed an order. And Sandy took the call and put it on speakerphone, and somebody bought a shirt for $40 and we lost our minds.
Dude.
The first sale of someone that wasn't like my buddy that just bought it, or my uncle, or, my wife's friend or whatever. Like, and I took a picture. I'll find it on my phone and show you. But we had to write down his address, had to ship it to him, took his credit card over the phone. And it was like, wow. Like it was just this feeling of accomplishment. And there's 5 of us working at it. And everyone told us we're crazy. Like, we're starting an apparel brand. There's 1,000 people have apparel brands. And I don't know. It was the people around me. And we had this technology that I knew was special, and I had to verify it and vet it in a pro setting. And I've got no fear. And I'm not trying to be arrogant when I say that, because I got a story for you later that we'll get to. I'm on this life, and this life is Doug, and I look and speak in the way I do, but I know that this is temporary. And so my whole life, I've had this thought of like, why not? So why not do everything? I might fail, and that's cool too, but I'm going to try. And it's kind of the way I went to my career. Like, again, you're told since you're this big, you're never going to play in the NHL. Like, that's what you're told. Like, because the chances don't make sense. And like, I only played 2 games. Not like I had this crazy career, but I played 1,000 pro games over the course of my career. And like for me, I feel like a failure. And I talked to some of my buddies like, Doug, I would have given my left arm to play in the NHL for 1 game. So it's like, it's all perspective, right? And for me, I'm like, in this life, it's like, I just want to go do as much and as cool as stuff as possible. If I fail, I'm okay with it, but it's not going to be because of lack of effort or trying or ego or anything like that. And so I think it comes back down to this internal knowing, I don't know where it comes from, that I'm just going to go do something, and why not? And I don't know. I know some people are ridden with anxiety and things like that, I have lots of friends, I'm sure you do too, and that struggle every single day. And I have so much empathy for them, but I don't have that. And I don't know what I've done or if it's just random, but it's, for me, I just want to go do as much as I can. And I'm okay that if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, I sense that. What was your North Star as you were starting out with Zenkai? Like, what was keeping you kind of waking up every morning and hitting it hard?
I think it was, we were doing something different. We had a technology, this Filium technology that could be applied to natural materials. So our story was different. So every day I talked, oh, you have a t-shirt company. Yes, we do, but we're doing it different. That's what excited me every single day. So I talked to our clients, our partners, NHL teams, NHL players, pro athletes, and other sports. That's what excited me every day. Was, again, getting back to doing something you love. I love that I want to be a part of a solution. I try not to buy plastic water bottles. I try to, whether it's recycling, whether it's being a pescatarian, and then I know it's a rabbit hole because fish has mercury in it, and that's a whole thing too. But at the end of the day, it's like I just try to do my best every day. But I am the guy that will walk 2 or 3 extra blocks to put something in a recycling bin and just instead of throwing in the garbage, like I'm that guy. So I love being part of a solution. I love being part of a team that was bringing something different to the market that would potentially help. So that's what made me feel good every single day. I'd be the worst guy in a business that I didn't felt was like helping. Like, so for me, I need to be part of something I believe in. I think there's a term for that to investing. Like I couldn't invest in like weapons. Like that's just not me. I know we need weapons. I get it. I'm not an idiot. I'm not naive, but I couldn't be a guy that would be supporting that. Even though I know that I sound like a hypocrite because I do appreciate being safe. So for me, I need to be part of a team that's doing something for good. And again, gets back to the like, money will just happen. Success will happen when you're putting that love and energy into something that you really feel good about. So it's like, I don't feel like I'm selling. I'm just like talking about what I love. That to me is a little bit of a difference, even though the outcome might be the same. I may sound salesy, but I believe in this.
Yeah. And so what is it, let's dig into Filium a little bit, because there's been, I don't know if you call it a transition, but there's, I don't know, how would you describe your relationship from Zenkai to Filium? And
yeah. So with Raj, he's such an incredible partner for 5 years, and being in textiles for over 50 years, and the Shaw Safari brand being a very well-known brand in the space, and him himself being a savant and an icon in his industry. Again, you're only as good as the people around you. You're only as good as your teammates. So for me, it's like I owe so much to people like you and to Raj and all of our immediate team at Zenkai, now at Filium. And with Raj, we're completely aligned where we see our technology helping the planet and where we want to take it to go. So that was always such an easy conversation. And last November, we sat down and said, okay, right around this time, it was like October, Zenkai had been 5 years, and we lasted through a pandemic that was, I think people look back like way longer than I think everyone kind of expected it to be. It was 2.5 years, especially, I was in Canada, I was in Bermuda. Like it was a long time for a lot of places. And we survived during this time. And people were shocked. Like, how are you not bankrupted, dead? And I'd be back coaching again. Your company's dead. And I sat down with Raj last November. I said, okay, Raj, like we validated this. Like we have professional athletes in all the major sports wearing it. We've got sales every single month. The technology works. We've got the certifications. We've got the testing. And we sat down and said, let's do this. Like, let's take this to where we think it can go. And that was the first conversation last November. I think I shared a lot of it with you, I think a few months later. And that started this new chain of events where we are now taking our technology to all the other industries. And the response has been incredible. It's actually been a little overwhelming. And we talked earlier last night at dinner, like as an entrepreneur, you go from saying yes to everything, every conference, I don't know how many Zoom meetings I sat in and pitches I made. And we talked about pop-ups. I went to 4 or 5 CrossFit gyms, put the table out and water. Like, what the hell am I doing? Like, you sell 10 t-shirts. Can't even afford the gas to my car to get out there for the event. Yeah. Meanwhile, I haven't paid myself anything in 4 years. Like, my bank account's going like this. My wife wants to go for a nice dinner. You're like, oh my God, like, what am I doing? And then now getting to a place where you can say no and kind of preserve your energy and say, listen, that's a great the application for our technology. It's not what we can't do that in the next 6 months. Please reach out again in next year or whatever it is. And now taking our tech, Cal, to all these industries are like, wow, we've needed this. And we carried it over last night. It's fun. The dopamine hit of people saying yes is great. But you can't get 200 yeses without just getting down and then closing the nitty gritty on the contracts and the pricing and the royalty. Like that stuff's not sexy, but that is the lifeblood of a business, and make sure you're cash flow positive. So for us now, it's really making sure we're picking the right partners. They're strategic, they're industry leaders, they are iconic brands. And getting back to our ethos, recognize that we want the textile industry to become more natural. And for hundreds, like textile, I think besides obviously the sex industry, textiles has been around. It's the longest industry in the world. Like since the first person put on a first prayer or whatever,
yeah,
that wasn't a leaf.
Yeah.
Apparel's been around for. And it was all natural back then. I don't quote me, 500,000, thousands of years, whatever it is. And it's only been the last 25 years that we've brought in synthetics. And again, synthetics, there was a need for them. You couldn't use cotton or merino wool or some of these fabrics as a true performance fabric. They were also expensive. And we needed cheaper alternatives. And we went to the synthetic industry, which is provided, it's derived from oil and plastic. And it's not meant to be on human skin. And you're finding now people, and I've got friends and they're like, man, like our kids got these rashes and it's gluten intolerant. It's a wheat allergy. It's this. And they're now finding people are getting rashes due to synthetic materials, because they're wearing it 6, 7, 10 hours a day. You're going to a baseball tournament as a young kid. Like when you and I grew up, you wore a cotton t-shirt under your equipment.
Yeah.
And now I got my 6 and 7-year-old nieces and nephews wearing like a base layer that's synthetic 12 hours a day at a baseball tournament or a hockey tournament or a lacrosse tournament. Their little tiny skin is not ready for oils like the plastic and the synthetics that's on it. So again, being part of a solution, it's been very exciting to bring a technology that we can start taking that world and make it a little bit more natural. And it's not going to happen overnight. The biggest brands in the world use a lot of synthetics, especially in the performance sports area. A lot of the highest end brands, the Chloe's of the world and the Ralph Lauren's, like they still use only natural materials. It's very expensive. It's very high quality. But in the sports world, it's gone mostly synthetic. So with our technology to maybe make a small change in that synthetic world to be more natural, I mean, that's like a super cool challenge. And why not?
Yeah. Well, and so now the next step, or part of the next step, is you've got nearly 100 different brands, industries interested in activations of the technology in whatever their kind of line is. And so then you winnow that down to a much smaller group. And then from that, you're trying to sign on just a handful. And so just explain to the people what that process looks like. I know you've got the 3 different avenues to kind of roll out the Filium.
Yeah. So basically anything that touches human skin, adult skin, baby skin, pet skin, anything that touches skin that you'd want to be natural, soft, and breathable, we can be applied to. And so the application is vast. So for us, again, we talked about not getting distracted with these shiny objects, is like, let's make sure we focus on the ones that are easy to bring to the market, that doesn't take a reinvention of a bunch of machinery or a whole other industry. So we're starting with kind of do what you know, and starting with what we know first, which is our kind of network and our base is workwear for uniforms and performance sports. So we're kind of starting there first. And the first way we can work with a partner or brand is do everything soup to nuts, call it a turnkey. So someone wants a couple thousand shirts, we can source the fabric, activate the fabric, cut and sew it, ship you a finished product that you either get to your employees or you sell online. So we can do that. That's for smaller brands or corporations. That's kind of that sweet spot that aren't in apparel full time, or they're just starting out in apparel. It's very expensive to go overseas and source materials from fabrics. So if you go to places like China or Vietnam, you need like millions of units just to get into some of those factories. So for a small brand, it's very difficult unless you have a huge bankroll. So then the second way is fabric supply. Is, let's say you've got cut and sew house. All the big players do is we can basically take fabric, activate it, whatever blend they want, and then ship them an activated product that they cut and sew themselves. And that's where kind of the big boys, that's what they want. It's easy for us. It's easy for them. They handle the supply chain after they get the fabric. And then they cut and sew to whatever they want. They go and sell it online or in stores. It's their choice. And the third way is more of the Cortex model, is activating a factory or we were calling it mill accreditation. So we go right to the mill where all the fabric's been sourced to, and we activate there before cut and sew. So we're very bespoke. We can work with many different size of companies, smallest brands, the biggest brands in the world, really custom, tailor-made. Everybody wants to be first. Naturally, as kind of humans, they did want to be the first to say they've got this. So that's where it's been a little overwhelming at start, is trying to decide who those first people will be and first brands will be. So it's very exciting. But it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of work to really bring these relationships. And I mean, some of the brands we're talking to, they're all household brands. Everyone, when we announce this, everyone's going to know who they are. I mean, 6 months, Cal, 6 months I've been working on some of these deals, and it takes time. Everyone's got a boss, everyone's got a level, a VP. They've got to run it through the chain and make sure that they're completely compliant. So it's a long process. But once you get the first couple, especially in a specific industry, it becomes way easier to validate it for more people after that. So that's kind of what that keeps me up at night. That's our challenge right now, is take this incredible opportunity, whittle it down, and now execute our first 5 to 8 customers.
Yeah, because the layman or even me, I see them as like, oh, why wouldn't they do it? It sounds like such a great step towards being green, and obviously the performance part of it. But we're talking about iconic brands that are going to change what they do. It's fucking massive. Like, it really is. They're trusting, you and Filium to, be able to perform as you've shared with them. And so it's, if I'm Adidas and I'm interested, would you take some of their garments, activate it, and give them like, look, this is what it would be, and they could kind of do a side-by-side test? Like, how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, there's a lot of testing that we've been doing more so in the last 6 months. The testing we've done before has been in field, in real world testing. So we've got great feedback. We know this works and this doesn't work. But now just having a scientific lab validating this. So that's been our program last few months, is getting a way more scientific data behind it, which we're been excelling at, to be quite frank. And it's the feedback's been incredible. And remember that with the technology that we have with Filium, the re-education that has to go back into natural materials are great and they're good for you, but now they're performance fabrics as well. That correlation has never been done before. So that is a re-education with an entire marketplace that's been taught moisture wicking, a dry fit type material. Well, that's anti-science. And so we're now saying the opposite, and we're backed by science, and we are now going to change and re-educate a market. They're like, well, you're wearing a polo that's for playing golf, but it's cotton. Like, that's going to be terrible. It's going to be thick and heavy. I'm already a terrible golfer. I'm going to be way worse wearing this. Yeah. Right. But no. Sweat stays on your body. Flame repels it. Works with thermoregulations, your body's natural cooling system. Sweat goes to water, from water to vapor. It keeps you cool for longer. That's what our human body is designed to do as our core temperature rises. So the science of sweat the scientific term is thermoregulation. So that's all factual. It's all real. So that is the challenge. And that's, again, what gets exciting is educating a market and being I can't think of a disruptor or whatever it is. So that's, again, Cal, if it was easy, everyone would do it, right? Is that what everybody says?
Yeah.
Like, if you had $1 billion idea and it was super easy to execute, like, everybody would just do them all day long and that would be happening. This is what I get excited for. And you probably see it in my expression. It's like, you're telling a new story. You're educating a new market. It's extremely difficult. It's expensive. It's time consuming. But if we can pull this off, we've literally changed one of the oldest professions in the world with a new technology.
Yeah. Well, I want to get into some of the testing that you shared with Lindsay and I before you and I got on here today, and just kind of highlight what some of the when you got the results back, some of the things that exceeded your expectations. But I'd also like, before we do that, like really, you did a great job of it there, but like really break down, this is dry fit. This is what they promise. This is what it actually does. And then this is what a product with Filium technology does, how it performs.
So basically the premise of wicking is, and every company has their version of wicking. So Adidas, it could be Climate 365, and Bauer, I think it's 37.5, or the core temperature of a human body. Can't quite remember what the number is. Dry Fit from Nike is obviously one of the most famous ones. And these are the greatest marketing companies in the world. Like that's what they do. Yeah, they might sell t-shirts or hockey equipment, but they're the greatest marketing. That's why their companies are so successful. But when you break it down on a scientific level, what wicking is it pulls the sweat, it wicks sweat or whatever off your skin into the garment. So your garment is now wet. But what you're robbing yourself of is the chemical reaction of that sweat going from a liquid to a vapor. That chemical reaction is actually what cools our skin down. So if you're wearing a wicking shirt, your body's saying, hang on a second, the sweat just keeps getting pulled off. It's not going to vapor. It's not cooling me down. I've got to work harder to produce more and more sweat to get that chemical reaction to cool down my organs. And so then what happens, and if anyone's experienced a heat stroke or heat exhaustion, if your core temperature continues to rise, but you don't get the cooling effect, that's what heat stroke is. That's where you get lightheaded or dizzy. You got to sit down because your core temperature is rising so fast, your inner organs are overheating. Just like I'm sure everyone's gone to they've gone to the beach with their iPhone and you put it out on the blanket. And then a few minutes later, it says, iPhone's overheated.
Yeah.
Shut me down.
Yeah.
Actually, it shuts down itself.
Yes.
Turns it off. That's what our human body does when we overheat. We faint. Our body shuts off. So not only are you wearing a material that's not good for the planet, it's derived from oil and plastic, you're overheating your body as you're wearing it. So that's what wicking is. But that's what the story's been for 20 odd plus years, because you couldn't wear a natural material as a performance fabric until Filium. So for us, we've not only taken our technology, we've now applied it to natural materials. So the first time ever, you can wear a cotton t-shirt and it feels incredible. Your body stays cooler. Now you get to the other aspects of you're not absorbing any bacteria. You can wear the same shirt 4, 5, 6 times in a row and there's no smell.
I've done the test too. I didn't believe you when you told me.
Cal, I barely believe myself.
Yeah.
I've been in for 6 years.
And so I did the test. I think I told you I wore it when I would ride the Peloton, and 6 or 7 times I would take it off. I would hang it on the handlebar. I would come up the next time. Obviously it was dry and I would smell it each time. I'm like, God damn, it doesn't smell. It's at all.
It's crazy. It's honestly crazy. My wife is so sick of smelling my armpits because every time I come home, I'm like, she's like, Doug, it doesn't smell. I'm like, I know, but I can't be blinded by how much I want this to work.
Yeah.
And so again, now getting back to the re-education, Cal, is I have some of my best friends in the world. They're like, Doug, I just wash Filium activated product after every workout. I'm like, but you don't have to. They're like, Doug, I throw it in the hamper. That's what I do. Again, re-education.
Yeah.
It's not gross. There's no microbes in the shirt. That's why it doesn't smell.
Yeah. So talk about that. Explain that to people.
So basically our sweat is naturally odorless. There's no smell to our sweat. But in our sweat, we have the bacteria from our skin and from our pores that's carried in the sweat. So sweat is a distributor of the bacteria. But the sweat itself, there's no odor and just not normal sweat. So what happens, and again, on the polyester side, polyester attracts the microbes. It tracks bacteria just naturally as the fabric. Cotton, natural materials actually repel it a little bit just naturally. Again, when you're activated with Filium, because it repels the water, it repels the bacteria that's carried in our sweat. So there is no bacteria in the shirt. So you can golf in a golf shirt 2 or 3 rounds in a row, sweat 100-degree heat, and you won't notice the smell. And so now, again, getting back to this environmental piece, you can now as a single person at home, save water. And I know it gets overwhelming sometimes. I get overwhelmed with some of the stats. I'm like, how am I supposed to save the planet? Like, do I eat fish? Do I not eat fish? Like I bought a plastic water bottle the other day because I was so thirsty in the airport and I didn't have a refill station. Like I'm guilty as anybody. I want to do my best every day. And it gets kind of daunting. I'm like, well, what's my recycling that's going to do? Or I haven't bought plastic water in X amount of years. How does that really help? Well, everything helps a little bit. I laugh with my wife. It's like, we look at our credit card statement. I'm like, why is it so high this month? And you look at it like there's no purchase over $100, but it's just like every day, just $80, $70, $60, $80. And you spent $3 or $4 grand. And like, I didn't even buy anything this month for myself. It just adds up a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here. And what's that? I love this saying. It's from the book, Atomic Habits. And it says, daily might seem insignificant little habits, when done over time, yield staggering results. And it gets back to that little bit every day. Then what Kobe Bryant say, 1% every day. That was his whole thing. Get 1% better every day. Well, then you look back and you're like, oh my God, like we've gone a long way. Or we've saved a lot of money as a family on our credit card because you're cutting out this and this and this. So again, for us on the environmental side, it's like, you imagine having a full set of workout stuff. And like, guys like you're not pretty active. I work out an hour 3 or 4 times a week. And like, I'm doing laundry now, like once every 3 weeks, maybe once a month for my workout stuff. And before Filium activation, I was doing laundry once on Saturday because I had 7 shirts and 7 compression shorts and 7 pairs of socks. And I'm doing laundry every week. Now you have 3 or 4 active kids or husband, wives in the family, and you're doing laundry every second day for some families with lacrosse and baseball and hockey and football. So imagine what you're saving as that household by doing less laundry, less pollutants in the rivers, less things being rinsed out of your clothing, a lot of technology applied topically. So again, it's just another thing as a family that to lower your carbon footprint. And now when it's done on a mass scale, the numbers get big. So when we talk, Cal, to our workwear partners, like some of them, it's 100 million gallons of fresh water we're going to save them next year just by activating their uniforms.
And that's by them washing it after their second wear versus their first. And
yes.
you've told me that they could wear it 5 times.
Like it gets crazy. And then that's one company. You got 10 companies doing that. And that now you're making that major difference, right? Or if you have 30 or 40 million households that are doing one less laundry load because of an active household, like you add that all up, now you're helping with the droughts. We all see the climate's it's all changing. It's getting hotter. It's pretty self-efficient. And it's again, getting back to doing something you love and being part of a solution. So that's what wakes me up every single day, is doing something you love and being part of something that feels good and being part of a solution, not adding to something that we know is going to have to change.
Yeah. And it's one of the things I've noticed in wearing the shirts particularly is at first it's a little disconcerting because, I'll be on the Peloton and my shirt's not kind of sucking off any of the sweat and my shorts are soaked.
Yep.
But my body, so for people to just get a visual here, like you're on the Peloton, my chest is soaking wet and the sweat is dripping down on my shorts. Now, if I ride for a long time, it'll eventually pick up some of the sweat.
Yes.
But the body actually does stay cool. And I had a workout yesterday where I was moving some weight and I was doing some breathing work. And generally, it's 95 degrees here in Austin. I would not wear a shirt. And yesterday I wore my Zenkai Filium shirt with the unlearn on it, which I've done some for some friends and we're placing a larger order to sell. But I love the fact that it feels comfortable. This one that I'm wearing right now was in the hamper. It wasn't the one I worked out with, but it was in the hamper. I wanted to wear it today for the shirt, for the podcast. I was like, fuck it. I threw it in the laundry in the dryer for like 3 minutes, put it on. It was like it was coming right out of the. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, it really is, and it's something you get about experience, and it feels bizarre. It feels bizarre because it's what we're supposed to do naturally, but we've gone away from it a little bit. And from in society with a lot of the synthetics we've been wearing, and so now it's bringing it back again to. Isn't it funny? Everything comes full circle. Like, oh, what? Eating an apple? That's just like way better than eating a protein shake with fake apple parts in it. Like, of course it is. But it's like all of us, you go through that full cycle. So for us, natural materials, it's keeping the sweat on your skin. That's what we're designed to do. And it's kind of fun bringing it full circle and being part of a new wave of something that's been done for thousands of years naturally. That's exciting.
Yeah. Tell me, give me some of these results from the testing that kind of blew your mind.
Yeah. So it's, again, you know it in your heart, like about the no smell thing, but like everyone's like, Doug, how do I believe you? I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like, I wouldn't believe myself either. Like, I just met this person or whatever. Like, I wear it 10 times, doesn't smell. I don't believe it. I wouldn't believe that either. So we did 14 tests, just got the results, I think 2 weeks ago. And like, again, these all scientific in a lab. So like no microbes detected, no odor detected. We did something called what's a vapor transmission test, where basically you could do it at home. You take a piece of fabric and you blow hot air, like just blow air from your mouth through it. If you can feel it on the other side, you can feel how much the transmission comes through. Obviously, they do it scientifically. So like a polyester shirt might be 300 is the number they give to like a polyester shirt, which is not breathable at all. And our material comes back, the Zenkai material activated by Filium, and we're at, I think 767 or 87, like 2.5 times more breathable. So think of, again, you're outside, you're working in a job that's outside, it's outdoors, or you're a professional athlete or just a coach, it's outdoors. Like, you want a breathable material on you. So Cal, like, the whole world's going to hear about this. Like, I've been working for 5 years to develop this concept brand of Zenkai, to bring it to the, some of the most well-known athletes on the planet that are saying, Doug, this is incredible. And we haven't brought it to the masses yet. That's what 2024 is, brother.
Yeah.
And it's going to be like a sledgehammer in the sense of like, everyone's going to hear about us. Like, it's going to be everywhere. And it's fun. Almost like, I don't know what a good analogy is. Like, you have this secret. You're so excited to tell everybody, but you gotta be patient. Maybe it's like almost like Christmas. Like, Christmas is coming and you're going to get something. And it's like, you want it to come, but you're also like just amping up for it. Like, that's what it feels like every day right now, is like, we're on to something. We know it's going to work. It's extremely hard. It's not easy. We got a great team around us. And then 2024 is going to come and we're going to announce these partnerships, and it's going to be, everyone will be able to experience this feeling of what we're actually naturally supposed to be doing. And that's fun.
What are some of the challenges you're facing right now?
I think one of the biggest challenges in the sports specific side is it's been dominated by synthetics for the last 20 or so years. So it's a re-education, like we talked about earlier. I can't spend, Cal, an hour in a beautiful setting like this, having a podcast to explain to somebody everything we've talked about today. Like, what do you have? 4 seconds on social media, they say now? Something scrolls up, like that's the time you have, 4 seconds. So even too, like, one of my challenges is like, with our technology is so incredible. How do I distill what we've talked about last 20 minutes into 4 seconds on someone's Instagram feed?
Yeah.
How does the biggest brands in the world that we're currently, close to signing, how do they market that in 4 seconds? So that is a challenge, the re-education, but that's also the excitement of the opportunity. That keeps me up at night. Like, it's always nice to be wanted, but when do you exit? When do you take on more partners? When you dilute yourself? So in the business aspect, you want to make the best decision for the company. And ultimately it lies on myself to bring to our board what the opportunities are. And I don't know what to do most days. Like, how do you prioritize? Like, do I prioritize this workwear company or this performance company or this hat company? I want to do all of them. So it's, again, incredibly rewarding and humbling having those opportunities, but it's also like, and then because you are going to piss people off, like, well, Doug, I wanted this first.
Yeah.
But now you went over here and I'm like, sorry, man, like it's nothing to do with you. It's business. And this was just opportunities a little bit bigger. And I had to make a decision, and I'm going to make wrong decisions. I'm going to screw up, and you and I are going to grab a beer and look back, dude, why did we should have done that one? And so like, I know that's going to happen, but how do you just mitigate that and making sure what I think Jeff Bezos, just like a last month I read, the reason why he became so successful, I think it was in his words, is like he could make, 80% of the decisions with like only 60% of the information. I might be screwing up those numbers, but Callie, if you're running a successful business, you can't wait for 100% of the information because it's gone. The opportunity is gone. So you've got to sometimes make those snap judgments with 40, 50, 60% of the information. Okay, we got to make a commitment. We got to go to that. And so that's the kind of stuff that rattles into my brain all day, is not screwing up. Like my closest friends and family, people like you that I look up to, our advisors, the network, like they're all my partners in this. And like, I don't want to disappoint anybody. I will, because someone's going to have a relationship that we can't facilitate and they might be upset with me. And I'm going to have to take that, and it'll be a difficult conversation to have. So that's the kind of stuff that, day to day, it's rattling around up there. I meditate, I journal. My wife says I should be doing more of it, and she's not wrong. I go for my runs, are very therapeutic for me. A lot of times, like I'm like that crazy guy. Like I don't listen to anything sometimes. I just think and just breathe. And I think when you're talking, you can't receive, is kind of how I think of it. So for me, I need to sometimes be silent, and I love people. I love talking. So it's sometimes difficult for me, but my runs, I get that. I go for an hour, not like hardcore, like Theo or anything like that, but go for an hour. I don't listen to anything most days. I just with my thoughts to try to tap into that energetic, because I don't have all the answers. And people look at you as like, what's the decision for this? And you have to make a decision. And sometimes it's scary.
And you're in that phase right now where you're going to winnow the group down to, this smaller, 12, 15, whatever the number is. And then from there, do another round of due diligence on both sides. And then who we're launching with.
Yes. And it's fun because we've got partners in different industries. And that's one of the biggest, getting back to like not really an ethos, but a goal of mine in the company. It's like our 30, 60, 90-day plan is I don't want to activate 5 of the same exact brand in the same exact space. Yes, I want to do 100 in the same brand in the same space. But for our first 10, 12, 15, whatever it's going to be, I want to have them 4 or 5 different industries. I want to do workwear. I want to do pets. I want to do uniforms. I want to do performance. I want to do flannel. I want to do hunting or fishing. Like I want to validate different markets, because that's going to be such a great litmus test of like, oh man, like, and honestly, Cal, like there's probably 100 applications that you and I haven't even thought of right now.
Yeah.
Someone's going to phone me going, hey, have you ever thought of doing this? I'm like, that sounds like amazing. Never thought of that. And so that's what's exciting too, is that this technology, it's not like, oh, it's one thing and we're going to like, it's constantly evolving. We've got this really cool group we're dealing with overseas in Europe right now. I mentioned to you last night. So getting back to my days of Zenkai, like I'm not satisfied. And there's 2 words I learned early on in my sports career that we were kind of told by our coach that was like, this, we can never seep in. And the first one was complacency. And the day that I wake up, I'm like, oh, I know everything, or I know this, like, oh my God, just slap me in the face. If I ever say that to you, slap me. Like it's on video, it's on record. Like being complacent is just, to me, like it can't seep into my life. And I think about it every day when I wake up. How do I get better? How do I learn? How do I surround myself? How do I get better advice? How do I seek out? How do I take a class or watch a master class or a TED talk? And then the second word, and ironically, they're both C words, is consistency. So for me, it's every day. It's not letting complacency sit in. And how do I be consistent? And again, it goes back to being accountable and things like that. So for me, if I can make consistent decisions with how the brand, how I feel, how I want to portray in the media, how I want to portray it and with our clients, that's what always I'm kind of going through my head is, listen, I want to launch in these categories. I want to work with more natural, less synthetic. And if I'm making the decisions from there, then I'm okay standing up and saying no to someone. I'm sorry it didn't work out. I apologize if I annoyed you or wasted your time. But from the outset, this is kind of what we're looking for. And if they're mad at me, hell, I'm going to piss people off. Like, it's going to happen. And that was part of, I think, my maturation as a man was okay not being liked. Early on in my life, and probably a lot of people can maybe relate to that. Like I wanted no one wants people not to like them. Like everyone think deep down wants to be a people pleaser and people like them. And then as I matured, I realized, yeah, but like if I'm going and drinking with this group of people because I want them to like me, and then I'm like over here with this group of people, you kind of start like losing yourself a little bit. And I think we all have friends. You're like, that guy calls you and you're like, oh man, this is going to be a long night tonight. If I say yes to this text or whatever, or like my wife's not gonna be too happy if I'm going with this group tonight. You know, we all have friends like that. And as you mature and you kind of start realizing like, oh man, like my energy, like I need to protect this energy and my time. And for me, it's my wife and it's my business. And if I'm getting better at saying no and protecting my time and protecting my energy. Because at the end of the day, we all have free will as far as I can go drink with the best of them and I can go do this, but man, you know what? Like if I'm going to have this complacency or this consistency every day, there's this saying of, free will is an illusion in the sense of if you want something bad enough, choice is illusion. You want something bad enough, choice is actually illusion. So if you want to lose weight and you sit down and you put all these donuts in front of you, like there's no choice. Just don't eat the fucking donut.
Yeah.
Like there's no choice. If that's what you want is to lose weight in this example. If you want to be successful in business, but you're out all night or not taking care of yourself, you're not mentally sharp, like there's no choice. Go to fucking bed. Get up. Right? So this idea of if you want to be successful, there is actually no choice. We all know what the choice is.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. So I want to wrap. You had talked about before we got on about you had an Akashic record story. But before we do that, let's talk about anybody who's interested. You know, maybe there's a big brand that's listening. How do they inquire?
Great question. I don't know if in the comments, maybe we can throw maybe my email address in or whatever. Our company is called Filium, Filium. I can throw maybe my email address onto there. We're redoing our website. We're just kind of refreshing this whole thing. It's been kind of a whirlwind, to be honest, last 6 months.
Yep.
So we're just keeping things pretty tight as we get our partners here before our first kind of mainstream launch. We haven't even announced all the amazing people we have as far as investors and advisors and board members. So we're kind of keeping things a little bit tight right now. And then we're going to be everywhere.
Yep.
So yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Maybe that'll be the best way to do it.
We'll do that. Done.
So I apologize because I do not know the young lady you spoke with, but I watched one of your podcasts a little while ago. And I think she was an Akashic record healer.
Was it would either been Laura Coe or Vanessa Lambert?
Yeah. I don't quite remember, but anyway. And I'm like, I'm fascinated by the spiritual realm, fascinated by energies. We talked about a little bit earlier about like you meet people, like, I like that person. It makes no sense why I like them. I just met them in the grocery store or whatever. I like that person. There's obviously a reason. Our lizard brains are too stupid to understand this whole thing that we're a part of. So I was in Portland, Oregon. I was walking on the street one day, having coffee, and there's a little bookstore. It's on 23rd Avenue. If you guys haven't been to Portland, it's an incredible city. 23rd Avenue is a really cool, hip part of the city. And backing this story up a little bit is my dad, Sandy, was the first one to kind of instill a spiritual nature or spiritual like questioning into me and my brothers. Like he was never ever push religion on us, but he's like, I want you guys to experience spirituality. And so he exposed it to us, if that makes sense, without ever feeling I had to follow something and so when I turned 20, I really started getting interested in religion. And then I started reading, the art of motorcycle maintenance and all these Zen books and these Buddha books and Christianity books. And I joined a Bible study class to learn about the Bible. And I was really fascinated. And I kind of found my peace with where my spiritual, journey kind of landed. And I have my practices that I love and work for me. And I do them and they work, but like I don't preach it, I don't talk about it. So my dad got us, I don't know if he called it Akashic Records back then, but with the old, I sat down in a chair with a healer and he recorded on a cassette, like a little microphone recorded. I would have been like 11. So born in 83. So like, 90-ish, 94, 95, whatever it was. And I listened to this like 20 years later. My dad was cleaning out something, found these tapes. But this is so cool. Like 11-year-old Doug is getting this reading. And this gentleman on the tape, this healer or whatever, goes on to tell this story. And he's like, your son Doug, who obviously was in the room beside him. He's like, he was born into royalty in this past life. And this royalty was going to give him everything he could have ever wanted in that life. But he died as an infant, like very early on. And spiritual world and how they work, and trust me, I don't know how any of it works, but how I know how it feels is they're like, that was like a missed opportunity. Like this young boy was born into royalty and died as an infant for whatever reason. And it's not. Listen to this tape. I'm like 26, 27. So fast forward maybe a year, 2 years later, I'm in Portland, Oregon, 23rd Avenue, cup of coffee in my hand, killing a couple hours before I meet my buddy. And I walk by this bookstore and it says Akashic Record Healer. And I was like, Akashic Record. I'm like, is that the thing that I had when I was like 11 years old? I listened to a couple years ago. Like usually not that part of city. Never seen an Akashic Record Healer in my life ever posted anywhere. So I walk in and the guy's name was like Brother Ed or something like that. And I go up to the front desk of this little bookshop and I said, hey, I just saw the sign on the door. I'm like, I got like an hour to kill, but probably a huge shot in the dark. He's even available. They're like, he just had a cancellation. He's available in like 5 minutes. I'm like, oh my God, can I book a session? Like, absolutely. Okay, come back in 5 minutes, go up here. Cal, this gentleman goes to tell me the same exact story, almost verbatim. Like, you can't make this up.
Oh my God.
Like, I'm like 28, 29-ish years old. Like, I heard the story 2 years ago on this cassette that was done when I was 11 in a different country, like a different place. Cause you're like, oh, they know each other. There's some sort of weird, like, Freemason situation going on. They're like sharing notes, like
no
exact same story.
Way.
And he says, Doug, people call you lucky. And that's what he said to me. I said, yeah, I get that a lot. And everything just comes into your lap and falls to it. But you know how that works. Like everyone, you work extremely hard. What overnight success takes 10 years. Yeah. Right. The guy playing the garage band for 20 years and he gets one hit and he's like, overnight success. Yeah. The guy worked 20 years for that overnight success. And I've been told that a lot. I'm like, oh, Doug, you're so lucky. Things come to you and they fall to you. They come easy to you. And you know how hard it is that you actually behind the scenes. And so the guy says to me in this Portland Akashic Record, he was like, Doug, people are going to say your life's easy. Things come to you easy, but it's because this is the life that you're supposed to have born into royalty. And the Akashic Records know that. And this is why it's happening now. So you're going to be afforded these luxuries that maybe would have been have to you 1,000 years ago, wherever it was. How do you make this up?
That is so rad.
Right?
Hell yeah.
And you're going, oh my God. So again, like you go back to full circle, that no fear thing. So I'm like, for me, it's like, I want to be around good people. I want to go do some cool shit. I'm going to fail. I'm going to fall on my face. Things aren't going to work out, but some things might work out. And you know what? Let's just get after it. And anyway, I had to wrote it down because I had to tell you that story.
Yes, I love a good Akashic record story. Well, awesome, brother. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad we finally got to do this. And now we get to go play a little golf.
Can't wait. We're not doing freaking Wolf Hammer.
No.
Unless we're calling Marty.
We'll keep it very social.
I like it.
All right. Love you, brother.
Yeah, I love you too. Thanks, Cal.